The following is a special presentation of ESPN on ABC.
That's Chicago off into the distance. To the southwest, well, you'll visit Chicagoland Speedway, and that's the site today where a championship will be decided. It's race 17 of 2008. It'll be between that man right there, Scott Dixon, the current points leader, and Helio Castroneves, the man who has got to try and track him down and score a bundle of points if he wants to win the championship. Of course, what they're fighting for is this trophy and the $1 million bonus that goes with it. By day's end, one man will lay claim to it all. 2008 has almost been a picture of perfection for Scott Dixon, winning 6 times, including the Indianapolis 500. Scott Dixon is going to complete his perfect storm with a win at the Indianapolis 500. For a lurking Helio Castroneves, 2008 has been defined by 8 second-place finishes.
A couple of turns to go. Can he hold him up?
It is going to be Dixon taking the win.
No, we're going to keep trying because it ain't over yet.
But a Castroneves win 2 weeks ago in Sonoma
Are you kidding, man?
proved costly for Dixon and tightened the points race.
Everything we did was wrong.
Last week, Helio closed in even more until a controversial penalty cost him valuable points.
They are ordering the leader, Helio Castroneves, to let the 0-2 car by. Apparently, race control says he was blocking that time.
Why are you upset right now, Helio?
I do not have anything smart to say right now.
On to Chicago. Why
Chicago we go.
smart
Chicago
today?
we go. We're going to go for it.
And on to Chicago we have come as you look down on this 1.5-mile piece of asphalt that will be the battleground for a championship between 2 men, and only 2. It has come down to this once again. There's the trophy that they'll all be fighting for today. We welcome you to Firestone Race Day as we get you ready for this 17th race in the 2008 campaign. And boy, so glad that you're with us. A beautiful day here. Of course, our thoughts quickly for those folks with the weather that has been on the East Coast and approaching Florida. But there is the man of the moment, Scott Dixon, the points leader, as he comes in here with a 30-point margin over Helio Castroneves. Now, Castroneves got penalized in qualifying. He's going to be starting at the back of the pack. We'll explain what happened and why he got the penalty and what it means to this championship chase. Here's what has to happen. Dixon leads by 30. He's starting second, Helio in the back. All Scott has to do is finish 8th or better, and it does not matter what Helio Castroneves does. And remember that Scott Dixon's worst finish on an oval was 4th back at Iowa. Now, Helio Castroneves did not help his cause last week at Detroit. This was the blocking penalty when he was leading the race. He moved right, and then he moved left on Justin Wilson. And instead of it being a 20-point margin, he had to give up the spot. He lost 10. And then, inexplicably, yesterday in qualifying, we saw him dip the wheels below the white line. They were told in the drivers' meeting, don't do that. He did it on all 4 laps. So instead of starting 4th, he's at the very back of this 28-car field. And we check in with Vince Welch, who's with Helio.
In less than a week's time, 2 of the most talked about and in some eyes controversial calls in league history have gone against this man, Helio Castroneves, as he's chased the championship. Helio, you had a long talk with Brian Barnhart today after the drivers' meeting. What was that conversation about?
Well, first of all, I want to thank, all the fans, to send me emails, thousands of emails, of support, what happened last week and even this weekend, I have to say, you guys gave me some great message and keep pushing me, keep me with a great spirit. And today you have a great opportunity to, to try to pass a lot of cars and be there in the end. So it's going to be an exciting show and race. So let's see what happens.
Any clarity from Brian in that conversation this morning?
So far, we're all good. And now we're ready to race and we're ready to have a lot of fun.
What concerns you most about coming from the back of the pack?
Unfortunately, it's a lot of guys, 28 cars or 27 cars. A lot of guys might not have experience on the ovals, and after 2 road course, they might be a little bit rough. We're going to have to take it easy. We don't want to be in mistakes from others. We want to make sure that we race clean, and we'll be there in the end.
Marty, if Helio Castroneves should end up the champion at the end of this day today, what a great comeback story it will be.
It would be one for the ages. Of course, the man he's got to get past is right there, Scott Dixon. 1 year ago, he had his heart broken on the final turn of the final lap, losing the championship to Dario Franchitti. But you see that lady to his right? Well, that's wife Emma. She's brought a new warmth to the Iceman.
Buying for Emma is never easy, but if you can buy her an animal...
Yeah, then I'm happy.
So I got the biggest animal I could find.
Scott was really nervous, actually, when he was first about to. I thought he liked horsepower, but not this sort of horsepower.
Before meeting Emma, I guess most people would say I was a lot more quiet and probably a lot more moody, and that's where I got my Iceman name from. Nobody really liked me too much. I think maybe a couple of years ago I was maybe more like the Iceman. Now I'm like a warm man, maybe, coming out a little bit.
Scott came into London on business. We have a mutual friend and we met up for dinner. I brought a load of my girlfriends because I'd never met him before. And I thought I was just doing a favour, but by the end of the evening we were like our friends left. They had enough of us just talking to each other.
I don't think I listened to her much for the first few, I'll say minutes rather than hours, because she's gorgeous.
I normally go for the kind of like loud, outlandish kind of guys. He's completely the opposite.
Meeting Emma definitely, brought me out of my shell a little bit. Now I feel most at home, I feel most complete, and she's definitely been a big part of that.
1 lap to go. The championship at stake. Who's going to get it? Down the backstretch for the final time. Dixon in control. Into 3. If Dario has he's going up, and Dixon's out of fuel. Dixon is out of fuel. Dario Franchitti's going to win the race and the championship.
To come down to the wire with Dario and just lose it the way we did, I think was the most frustrating part, especially when it comes down to maybe a cup of, ethanol or gas that you're talking about is crazy.
Last season, it took a good week or two, to get him, back to Scott. He was really devastated.
I just hope that this season started like a week later.
They call him the Iceman, but today he is red hot, and he is the winner.
It is going to be Dixon taking the win.
You start first, you finish first. It could not get any better.
The day will belong to Scott Dixon.
I thank my wife for sure.
It's been a fantastic year for me on and off the track, getting married, and it's just been one of those years that, I'll definitely look back on the rest of my life.
We always say the dogs are like, that's me and this is Scott in personality. He's chilled and relaxed, and George is neurotic and barks a lot, has a lot to say for himself.
Emma's turned him into a little girl, Princess George.
I'm kind of focused like him. I know what he's got to do. I'm always saying the odd little pep talk.
Sometimes I'm a bit laid back, I think, and she'll definitely jump on my case before I get in the car and get out there and make sure you try your best, make sure you try and win. To have someone that's so close just makes it much more special.
I'm down here on pit lane with Scott Dixon's boss, Chip Ganassi himself. Chip, we heard Scott say that maybe the Iceman has warmed up a little bit. What changes have you noticed in him this year?
Well, it's kind of twofold, Brianne. I think off track, his wife has brought him a great off track life and a great sense of his own well-being. I think, but I think as maybe as soft as he's become off track, he's become that much more the Iceman on the track. So it's kind of worked in both directions for us in a positive manner, I think.
With the finishes of the last 2 races, it's certainly been exciting for us, but how do you think the stress of these final moments of the battle have affected your driver?
Not at all. I mean, it's, everybody knows what we were set out to accomplish, and we just have to go out and run our own race and have our own day. We know how to do it. He's a past champion. He knows what he's doing. I mean, we were down to it to the last lap last year, and we're looking forward to today, really. We're looking forward to it.
Jack, the last thing this team wants is a repeat of last year. Could it be Dixon's day?
And Brianne, this has been a difficult couple of weeks for this guy, but right now he knows the job at hand. But Scott, I wonder, how badly did you want this all to be done and over with 1 week ago?
You know how bad, man, real bad. It's been a tough couple of weeks, and especially last week. We had a quick car. Everybody at Team Target has done a fantastic job, and I've got to give them a lot of credit for the whole season. They've done so much for me, and the only way I can repay them is to have a good day today. And so far this weekend's gone well, but we got a lot of work cut out for us, and hopefully we can keep it going. But we've got our fingers crossed, man. Everybody on our side's got our fingers crossed, and hopefully we can take it away.
Let's talk a little bit about your major concerns out on the racetrack today. They are what?
Obviously, the biggest problem for us is a DNF. You know, getting caught up in an accident, you know, having mechanical failure, anything like that, I think is really going to destroy our day. It makes Elio's chances of taking the championship a lot better. So, you know, that's what we got to keep our eye on. We have to finish 8th or better if he wins, gets most laps led, and things like that. But, you know, he had a tough day yesterday, and starting from the back of the field is going to make it exciting for him, especially for the first half. We just got to keep it simple, man. We got to keep doing what we've been doing all year when we've won races, and hopefully we can win another.
Did you sleep at all last night?
Strange story, man. When one of our dogs, Emma, my dogs, had an earache, so we had to get up at 6 this morning and run to an emergency vet clinic, which was a bit of a pain, I think, but luckily enough, the dog's doing well and we're all happy, and you know, I slept a little bit. That's all.
Marty? So the dog's doing well, but he didn't get much sleep. I don't think it'll matter. The adrenaline will be flowing, and that's what he's looking for. His second championship. Elio's looking for his first. The command when we come back to Chicagoland. Another look at the trophy, and a great crowd on hand here at Chicagoland Speedway. Drivers are in the car. Scott Dixon, a focus that you cannot believe, and Elio looking straight ahead because he's got 27 cars to pass to get to the front, and that's what he has to do. We welcome you to the Peak Antifreeze and Motor Oil Indy 300. It is the final race here at Chicagoland Speedway, where we will decide the championship today. All right, let's bring in Scott Goodyear. Let's talk about the pressure. You've been in this situation.
You know, right now for Scott Dixon, he in the last couple of races, Marty, has tried just to go out to get points, and that has not worked well for them. So in this situation, he knows he needs to be racy today. And for Helio Castroneves, you know, coming from the back, I asked him this morning, I only have one thing to do, and that is to win. One has a lot to gain, the other one has a lot to lose. I've been in this situation in 2000. I had to win and hope my competitor didn't finish in the top 10. He did. I finished second in the championship. Was not a great feeling.
Got just enough time to show you the domination that Scott Dixon has had on the ovals. He has won 5 times on the ovals this year.
It's been amazing simply because he had road course experience last year and domination. This year it seems to be on the ovals. Will play out for him here today.
If the butterflies are churning in your stomach, just think what they're doing in Helio Castroneves and Scott Dixon. Look at those grandstands. The folks have turned out to find out who's going to win. It is time to get this race underway.
Fans, it is time for those most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome back Tom Hervis as he delivers the command.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
"28 cars. Only one time in 168 IndyCar races have there been more than 28 cars besides the Indy 500. And that was 1997, the finale at Las Vegas. And it is a big field in front of a big crowd with one big trophy at stake. Take a look at your Peak Antifreeze starting grid across the top of your screen. You'll notice there's Scott Dixon, and you'll have to wait till the very last name to see Helio Castroneves. And it is absolutely a long way to go for Helio. Take a look from high above, and you just get an idea of how far back it is on this starting grid, all the way back to 28th spot and Helio Castroneves. It is going to be fun to watch him come up through the field. It's going to be pressure packed. All right, let's talk a bit about how you score points in the Indy Racing League, because it is oh so important on the scenario as the cars begin to pull out.
And the most important thing here for Helio today is the 3 points awarded for the most laps led. He knows he has to get up front and challenge Scott Dixon, and he knows he needs those 3 points to be able to have a shot at this championship today. Starting at the back, Marty, it will be difficult for him to achieve that goal.
All right, let's get a final preview of what we can expect to see. Vince, you're up first. Let's talk a little strategy.
Well, as important as the drivers are, the 2 men handling their strategy have been equally significant during this championship chase. Tim Cindric, with Penske Racing since '99, has proven he's not afraid to roll the dice during these last few weeks. While Dixon's strategist, Mike Hall, is like that physics professor who seems to know the answer before the equation is even presented. They are arguably the 2 most respected strategists strategists on this pit lane. Their competitiveness, yeah, you got to believe they're competitive. In fact, their competitiveness boiled over into a heated exchange several weeks ago. They'll be matching wits here today with the championship on the line. Jack?
60 seconds. That's the only time that it will take. The aggregate time of that the pit crews will have to go to work. Elio Castroneves is led by 57-year-old Rick Reineman. Evidently the oldest guy, still going over the wall and changing the outside tire. Contrasting him for Target Chip Ganassi and for your current point leader, how about 49-year-old Ricky Davis? But if you take a look at both of these men, they've won championships. They've won Indy 500s. But over the course of the last few weeks, the tension has been palpable on both these teams. 60 seconds, Brianne Pedigo, could be the most important 60 seconds of this race.
Well, Jack, there's another element we have to consider, the teammate factor. It never hurts to have a friend out there on the racetrack, especially when you're vying for a championship. Elio's got his wingman, Ryan Briscoe. They've bonded this season in their first year together, and Ryan will certainly do all he can to help him today. But what about Scott Dixon? Well, his teammate, Dan Weldon, is moving to Panther Racing next year. So in a few short hours, their tenure as teammates is over. Which raises the question, how willing will Weldon be to help Dixon clinch the title? We'll find out in a few short hours. But as willing as these guys can be to help their teammate, they can only do so much. This is a dangerous place to throw a block party, guys.
Well, let's talk about one other key element, the spotters.
And it's a team effort, as we're hearing right now, and those spotters play a key role in the drivers here today. The eyes and ears for the drivers, talking them around this course, letting them know what's going on. Many times today we'll see cars running 2 or 3 abreast, and the spotters for Scott Dixon, Glenn Wheeler, Elio Castroneves, Clive Howell, and they will turn around and give those drivers great information to help them get through the pack today, Marty.
Emma holding Scott Dixon's mother's hand as they are feeling the pressure. And we're going to go to a 2-box setup for you, because there's Elio on the right. We're going to keep that on board early in the race as he's at the very back. And then our left side will show you the front of the field where you'll see Scott Dixon. As they get ready to come through turn number 3, Ryan Briscoe, the pole sitter, slows them down as he'll bring them through turns 3 and 4. The pace car already making its way towards pit lane.
To avoid a penalty, Elio cannot pass before the start line. You cannot pass before the start line and prove your position.
And we're getting word from race officials, no start, but I'm looking out to see the reason why. And they want them to spread out a little bit farther. So they will go one more time around. They'll get on the race channel. So another lap to get your butterflies cranked.
Well, and that's what got them in this situation anyways, Marty, because in the driver's meeting they said keep your space between the rows coming down to the start. And what ends up happening is, as a driver in the cockpit, you don't even hear that. You just want to get going.
Let me ask you this: is that, could Briscoe be deliberately slowing down to give Elio getting as close as possible?
Yeah, it's definitely time to pass cars at the start and at restarts. At the start, you cannot improve your position until you cross the white line. Restarts, you can improve it at any point in time once the green is waved. It's going to be difficult for Elio to hold himself back.
Well, it's getting a little faster this time through 3 and 4, so Briscoe has picked up the pace. We'll see if we go green this time. Again, Castroneves on the right, the rest of the field on the left. They come down the front straightaway in the season finale, and the championship is about to be decided. Whoa, 3 wide.
Outside. Careful on your outside. You got one tight outside. Still there. All clear. High outside. You got one come back. You see it inside. Inside, one outside. You're in the middle. Clear outside, one inside.
Take a look at the battle a little bit further back. That's the battle for 6th place. There is Briscoe, as the 6 car has got Tony Kanaan all over him. Kanaan's going for the lead. Kanaan's on the high side, and yes, that's another paint scheme change. Not in the familiar green, but here comes Briscoe on the preferred low line.
Got to keep your foot on the gas. That guys will be doing that all the way around here. That yellow car now with Tony Kanaan. He wants to lead laps here. He's got nothing to lose. He's not going to be first or second in this championship. He wants to go out of here with a win.
Castroneves on the right side of your screen, already up to 21st. Elio on the high side is just picking him off. Danica on the left side, you're on board with her, and that is Scott Dixon. That is a battle for 3rd. And right behind is his teammate, Dan Weldon.
I asked Danica this morning how her car was working for her. She says, I think we are going to have a great race car today. I'm really excited.
On the high side, she gets half a car length, may have him clear. Weldon's going to go with Danica. Meanwhile, Briscoe leads another lap by half a car length as we go back on board with Danica. Meanwhile, Castroneves has now gone up to 18th. He's picked up 10 spots in 4 laps. We promised you this was going to be good.
Side by side, all the drivers I spoke to this morning said they knew that it was going to be like this. 214, 215 miles an hour right now, Marty.
Let's check in with Vince Welch. Vince?
The one thing this team talked about with Helio Castroneves is that as long as Scott Dixon is running, they realize that their fortunes rest on Dixon having problems. So you can't take too many unnecessary chances. Pass where you can pass, but don't put yourself in a bad position. They didn't put the number of spots on a particular goal for Helio in a certain amount of laps, but you can see he's getting busy right away, working his way to the front, Jack.
Remember, Chip Ganassi said inside the cockpit, Scott Dixon is still the Iceman. Well, he has been silent on the radio, but not so with his teammate Dan Weldon. Weldon, seeing the predicament that his teammate is in with that 7 car of Danica Patrick, has radioed back and said, find out if Dixon needs help. We'll have to wait and see, guys.
Well, and we're watching as you're finishing up, Jack. Helio is picking off another car. That's Will Power. He's running laps at 2:16. The race leaders are at 2:13.
There's always going to be cars back further in the grid that will be faster, but on Scott Dixon right now in this scenario, I think I want to be on the low side where he's at right now, simply from the fact that if something goes wrong with a car that's on the low side and you're on the high side, you have a chance of being taken out. He's running just a little protection down there right now, close to the bottom side.
Helio's up to 15th. Make that 14th if he can get around the 5 car of Oriol Servia. And it looks like he has him clear. Meanwhile, up front, Kanaan and Briscoe still going side by side, and this is really helping Helio because they are cutting a big, huge hole in the air.
Probably capable of speeds of running 216 to 218 that we saw the other day in practice. Kanaan tries the high side for a second, tries to swing down on the towards the apron going through the tri-oval section. He's trying to find anything that will give him speed.
Helio is in clear air. That's why we're going back to our full screen view. If it gets interesting again, we'll put it back up for you. Meanwhile, look at Kanaan. He's trying to find a way to get around the 6 car of Ryan Briscoe. Whoa, and looks like Dan Weldon sort of slid up the old racetrack.
That will get your heart rate going, probably 150, 60 beats a minute, probably up over 200 once that happens. We call that a moment.
And Ed Carpenter gets past him, picks up the 5th spot. Weldon drops back, and he has another car coming right up behind him there. And in fact, that's Thomas Schechter. So there is Ed Carpenter running in 5th, trying to put a bright spot on what has been a dismal road course campaign for him. He loves the ovals. Was struggling on the road courses. Started 13th, as you can see, so he's already picked up 8 spots. Castroneves is your biggest gainer, though. He picked up a total of 16 so far.
You talk about Carpenter coming up behind Danica right now. Those two don't really have regard for each other. I think I'm safe to say they really don't like each other. It'll be interesting to see what kind of pass he can make on her.
All right, there you see the pass on board as he gets underneath for 4th place. So Ed gets into 4th. Let's go back into the race lead as you've got Ryan Briscoe and Tony Kanaan. Brianne, what's going on in Kanaan's camp?
Marty, Tony Kanaan may not be vying for the championship, but he's certainly looking to add another win for Andretti Green Racing. So far, it's been a good day for his team. They started out this morning with the Indy Lights race. Ari Lyondike Jr., who drives for Andretti Green, got his first win of the season today, and the team also clinched the Indy Lights championship with Rafa Matos. So far, so good for Andretti Green Racing. Tony Kanaan looking to improve the day even more.
All right, thanks, Brianne. As we pull back a little bit further, going to show you the relationship back to Helio Castroneves, as Helio has now moved into 12th position. He has gotten around Marco Andretti right behind him there. And Helio is moving to the front. He is still running speeds. He is still faster. by about 2 miles an hour when those guys are running side by side. Take a look. That's the points difference right now. And obviously, as long as Dixon's in front of Elio, he clinches the championship. But we've got a long way to go in this one. As you can see, Castroneves on the move towards the front. There's Scott Dixon in third behind Tony Kanaan and the race leader, Ryan Briscoe. And it's going to be a long day for Emma Dixon and Scott's mom. They've got to sweat it out on pit wall. Monday Night Football returns to ESPN. A special doubleheader. 7 Eastern, the Green Bay Packers host the Minnesota Vikings at Lambeau Field. Then at 10:15, it's the Broncos and the Raiders. It's Monday Night Football tomorrow night on ESPN. Back here at Chicagoland Speedway, the lead up front is held by Ryan Briscoe by 0.2 of a second over Tony Kanaan. And Scott Dixon, the points leader, is in third, comfortably ahead so far of a charging Elio Castroneves. Castroneves is now up to 10th. As Dixon knows that he's coming, but as long as he stays ahead of him, he is okay for the championship. And there is Elio in the proximity as he is on the move. It's like he has got a rocket ship underneath him. All right, as we take a look at Scott Dixon, let's get more from his pits. Jackaroo.
You know that Scott Dixon has to be aware of what's in front of him, what's behind him, namely Elio Castroneves. But Scott Dixon is always thinking in the race car. When things were bunched up in front of him just moments ago, Scott Dixon keyed his radio and transmitted the following.
You talk to TK, he's got to keep them in single file and it's much quicker. I'll try.
He was talking to Packy upstairs and telling him that his spotter, he said, look, try to get to the 11 car to his spotter and get TK to stay in single file. Scott Goodyear, you can see the race speed is picked up since they went single file instead of side by side.
Jack, we've gained just about 2 miles an hour from where they were before. And this, if they run in line, will also help with fuel mileage. And for Scott Dixon right now, he is just sitting back there being very cautious about what's going on in front of him. As you mentioned, we watched the Firestone telemetry. You can see the throttle. He'll probably be 100% throttle all the way around here. Watch the G-force close to 4, sometimes spiking over in the miles per hour. This is going to be going on for all 200 laps around here, and there's just no room for error.
Boy, he looks so flawless right now. I mean, the car is just glued to the racetrack. Take a look a little bit further back. There's Elio Castroneves. He's got his hands full right now with Graham Rahal. In fact, Rahal has just gotten around and moved Castroneves back to 11th. Just a little bit further back, give a nod to E.J. Vizo. He started 26th. He's up to 13th. There he is, getting ready to go around Thomas Schechter. So another car on the move, albeit not for the championship.
No, but a very small team and doing a great job this season. Obviously, you expected him to be very competitive on ovals, and right now the team has just been getting very, very good on the ovals because the road course is what they've been perfect at most of the season.
That team hoping to go to 2 IndyCars next year, and they are definitely going Indy Lights racing next year. And of course, Thomas Schechter, that team, Lusso Dragon, trying to put together a complete program for the entire 2009 campaign. But the focus of the day really is on the battle for the championship. And Elio Castroneves has sort of hit a wall here now as he fell back 1 position. And could it be a case where maybe the tires have gone off a little bit, like he just drove them off?
Well, I think really what happens is that the cars that he was passing early on were the ones that were further back in the field. Remember, he was able to qualify the car in 4th before the penalty. So he's now getting up to a group of cars that are going about the same speed that he's capable of going to. So now he's going to have to wait for traffic to come into play, that maybe he can use traffic to help assist him to get by some of those other cars.
Vince, what are you hearing in pit lane?
Well, Elio wants to get a little racier, and Tim Cindric is urging him to stay in line behind the 06 there of Graham Rahal. Conserve a little bit of fuel. You never know if an extra lap or 2 might make the difference here today. Remember, Scott Dixon lost the championship on a cup full of ethanol last year. Whether or not that plays out in the long run, it's about one of the only few strategies and options that Elio Castroneves and this team have. But it's not because Castroneves' car has gotten slower. He wants to go by. He wants to get racy. Tim Cindric urging him to dial it back 1 notch.
All right, well, that's good to know. Thanks for the update, Vince, as he has basically locked into 11th place and saving some fuel as Graham Rahal runs in 10th. E.J. Vizo right behind him in 12th. Right now, Ryan Briscoe's your race leader, and in 3rd place, it's Scott Dixon. Helio Castroneves has still got a lot of chasing to do. There's Tim Cindric. He's the man that makes the calls. Back here at Chicagoland Speedway as we continue to watch the battle unfold for the championship. There is your race leader, Ryan Briscoe, and the yellow has just come out on lap 37, and it is the Menards car. Ed Carpenter, as he has tagged the wall hard and has actually caught that car on fire. So as he heads for the infield, the wheel is already off and the flames are shooting out the back, and Ed is trying to bail, and already
you're on fire. Get out of there.
Delphi safety crew on hand.
Look how fast that response was. That was amazing how quickly they ended up getting there. And as a driver in the series, because this Delphi team is at every particular track we go to, they certainly know that the guys will get there very quickly for him.
And you can see how much assistance he really needs, because you got to get that extra neck and head support out of the way. And he's okay. There's wife Heather. Heather, he's fine.
And actually, it was the Chicagoland Speedway group that got there first. That was terrific, and very close behind there, the Delphi group in the orange fire suits.
All right, let's go back and show you what brought out our first caution here on lap number 37.
He's just running by himself right now, and the car looks like it's okay. And then you can see something coming out the back, and that's just the sparks, the flames, possibly an oil line or something like that coming loose when he goes and hits the wall. But he had a suspension breakage or something of that nature. You saw the sparks come out from the back and then send him directly into the wall. Let's ride along with him right now. There's the sparks. The car is now dragging on the ground. He's now a passenger, has no control of the car, and then he goes off and hits the wall as we saw before, and this is the result.
So are you saying right front?
I'm not sure, but regardless, it's something that's actually you know, you're a passenger, as I mentioned before, and anytime that happens, you really have no control of the car, which is really a sad situation.
All right, we're going to get our first round of pit stops under caution. And so everybody is set up. Let's talk a little bit about the strategy, Scott.
Well, right now you're going to see everybody coming in the pit lane. The fuel window was somewhere around 45 to 49 from speaking to the teams this morning. So in this scenario, we're almost at lap 40. By the time they get the track cleaned up, you'll see everybody take advantage for fuel and tires come in, and then the strategy begins.
So we'll get ready for our ethanol triple pits. As you can see, all the crews lined up. Pace car just bringing them through turn 3 right now. It's Ryan Briscoe, Tony Kanaan, Scott Dixon, Dan Weldon, Danica Patrick. That's your top 5. You're saying, where's Helio? Right now, he's in 9th place. There you see him on the right side of your screen.
And a great opportunity if they can have a great pit stop to make up some positions during this pit stop.
All right, let's send it down to Vince Welch for ethanol triple pits.
Well, the first 3 pits will be occupied. Scott Dixon all the way at the end. Helio Castroneves in the 2nd pit, and then your race leader Ryan Briscoe in the 3rd spot. No changes expected for Scott Dixon. Ricky Davis leads his crew. Rick Reineman leads the Helio Castroneves crew, and Castroneves will get a tire pressure adjustment to handle and adjust to that understeer, but he said no front wing. I'm afraid it'll slow me down. Dixon is away. Good clean stops by all 3.
And there you see the race off pit lane. Tony Kanaan and Scott Dixon are the big winners. The loser is Ryan Briscoe, as he's going to come back out in 3rd. And as we get ready to get back to racing action, you can see that Castroneves actually picked up 1 spot himself. So he's coming out of pit lane in 8th. So he keeps chipping away at getting back towards the front of the pack. There is Scott Dixon right now in 2nd place, and Helio Castroneves in 8th right now. And when we come back, we've got a special guest up here in the booth with us. Dario Franchitti will be joining us. We'll talk about last year, this year, and next year. We'll return after this message from your ABC station. Under our first caution here at Chicagoland, where we're going to decide the 08 championship, time for us to give you the GoDaddy.com trivia question of the week. What's the fewest number of uncompleted laps in a season by an IndyCar Series driver? There's a little trick question here for you. The clock is ticking. And the answer is, Mr. Goodyear, you want to get in on that?
Well, I think it's 0.
0?
Yeah,
I agree. Do you remember who did it?
Tony Kanaan, 2004.
There you go. Way to read the card.
No, I didn't read it this time. I've had to some other times, let me tell you that.
All right, for more, log on to ESPN.com/GoDaddy. Hey, let's take a look to last year, because the guy sitting between us is going to love this moment. How about the final turn of the final lap when Scott Dixon had the lead and the championship in his grasp and then ran out of fuel? And Dario Franchitti puts an end to his perfect season, winning the Indianapolis 500, winning at Chicago, and taking the $1 million bonus. And guess who is with us now? And Dario Franchitti joins us here, high topside. And here's all the musical chairs, as he's going to replace Dan Weldon in Ganassi Racing in 09. Weldon's going to go over to Panther Racing, and Vitor is currently without a ride for 2009. So now we can bring him in, and I like the new hairdo. This is good.
I'm just making sure I can still grow it.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Talk to guys that worry about growing hair. All right, let's talk a little bit about what this decision, how this all came about.
Well, it's something Chip and I talked about in July when we had a meeting here actually in Chicago when the 40 Cup team shut down, and he kind of said, look, he says, you can drive for me wherever you want in any one of my teams. And so I didn't really think much more of that, and he asked me a couple more times, do you want to do it? And I said, I'm not sure, Chip, I'm not sure. And yeah, I started really thinking about it, and I started watching more of the races, some of the short stuff and the road and street courses, and I went to Detroit to talk to him about all the options on the table. I stood on Friday morning and watched the first practice and came back. I was like, oh man, I got to do it.
Hard to stand a racetrack when the cars are going around, isn't it? Oh. Now the schedule, it's changing, and we have a lot more road courses coming on board. Was that something that helped sway your situation? And we just talked before we came on air, and you and I were saying we love Surfers Paradise because it's a great racetrack. We've both been there. But is that something that you looked at?
Absolutely. I looked at the schedule. I looked at the tracks that we were going to. Some of the tracks we got rid of the schedule. And it's a schedule that suited me. I really thought, oh man, you get to go to some of those tracks I loved so much. And I said that last year when I left IndyCar Series. I said the one thing I'm really going to miss is getting out there and actually just driving that car and feeling, especially on a road and street course. I think dancing around and yeah, that brought me back.
Okay, you will remember there's no more fenders on these things, so you can't be rubbing up against anybody?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right, let's focus on this championship, because your future teammate is in a position where if he stays right where he is, just ahead of Elio, that's all he has to do. What have you been hearing? I know you were down in pit lane before you came up to join us.
Yeah, coming up here, I was listening on the team radio. Everybody's pretty calm down there. Scott's, as usual, calm in the car. Mike Hull's calm. I think they know what they got to do. Bit of a strange one by Elio yesterday with the thing in qualifying, so I didn't quite understand that. But
we asked him. He said he really just didn't think about it, which I mean, you made those eyes to me. I believe you, because I'm looking at Elio this morning. Marty and I were going like, come on, man, you can't tell us you didn't really think about it.
Well, I want to introduce or interject another potential controversy. We've heard this complaint before. Elio's complaining about the tire placement of the 9 crew on that last pit stop. But if it's inside their box, it's a moot point, and we're going to go through that argument again. But we'll point that out. Let's go back, and there is Elio, and let's take a look. And here's Elio coming out. See what we think.
These are large pit boxes here. There's 45 feet. You see now he's starting to wiggle the back end around. And Dario, you know that when the tire is there, you sort of got to make the back end of the car wag just a little bit to get it out there. But when you're on edge like this and you're chasing a championship, you're going to complain about anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely a bit of needle between these two. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think we're seeing that in a bit. But my personal opinion, Scott deserves it. He's had a hell of a year. I upset him last year at the end of the season here with that finish, and he's improved in all his weak spots, and he's done a hell of a job.
Brienne Pettigo has caught up with Ed Carpenter.
Yeah, Marty, he's just been released from the medical center. Ed, it was a strong run. You were up to 4th. Then what?
Something broke in the right front. I turned in. Nothing felt funny. There was no vibration, nothing to warn me of it. And I turned in, and the right front just kind of almost felt like it was coming into the cockpit. And then obviously I was out of control. So just really disappointing. We got a really good start at the race. Car wasn't that good yesterday. We made some really good changes overnight. It was obviously strong. I was sitting 4th, running full lean, just saving fuel, waiting for later in the race, and didn't get that chance.
That was a hard hit. Are you okay? I know you were complaining a bit about one of your hands.
Yeah, I'm okay. I think I actually broke this finger in the off week before Sonoma playing volleyball, so I think it just aggravated it again, but I'm okay, just more disappointed than anything.
We'll see you back next year.
I'll be back.
You heard it, guys. He'll be back.
Well, and not the end of the season that he wanted. He had 2 fifth-place finishes this year at Miami and at the Indianapolis 500. And he's out of this one. Right now, all eyes on that car. That's your champion if it holds up the way it is. Back here at Chicagoland Speedway, joining us in the booth is Dario Franchitti. He'll be driving the number 10 car next year for Target Chip Ganassi Racing. Let's reset it for you. It's Tony Kanaan up front, our second leader. It is Scott Dixon second, Briscoe third, Dan Weldon fourth, Danica Patrick fifth, Vitor Meira in sixth, and AJ Foyt, the fourth, has moved from 15th to 7th, and Helio Castroneves is 8th. And we will go to our 2-box setup again, as you'll be able to see Helio on the right side of your screen as he'll try and carve his way through the field as we're working about to the quarter mark of this event.
And Marty, this is important because as soon as he hits green, he can turn around and start passing cars at any time. He does not need to wait until the line like on the initial start.
Starting to go.
Already on the hammer. And boy, he guessed it right. Helio on the right side, already making a move on the high side. So Castroneves putting Foyt away and going after more cars up front. And take a look also as Briscoe, and going through that dust. I thought for a second that maybe Kanaan hit the wall, but it's just the oil dry that they've got up there.
Either he didn't remember it was there or he drove through there just to give everybody a little shower on their visors of dirt.
Take a look. Helio Castroneves on the right side of your screen right now, shown in 7th position. Vince?
Helio Castroneves made up 20 spots in the first 40 laps. But when they got ready to go green on this restart, Tim Cindric keyed the radio and said, be patient. Scott, can you believe, and you got a guy up there with you, Dario, do you think Helio wants to hear about being patient?
Actually, we're both standing here laughing, Vince, because patience is something that really goes away when you get inside the race car. And Dario, you know what it's like on these restarts. You are just so anxious to get going. And for Helio, he knows what he has to do.
Oh yeah, Helio's got one mission, and he can only do his best, and the rest is really up to Scott. So I think Helio is his one mission, get to the front right now, and each car that he gets up behind is going to be harder and harder because the guys near the front are running closer to the same speed that Helio can run.
A little bit further back, you're on board with Ryan Hunter-Reay. As you saw, that battle continues with E.J. Vizo and Graham Rahal, as that is 9th, 10th, and 11th on the racetrack. Let's go on board again. This looks easy from here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, this is a trust factor you really have to have with the guys you're racing with. There's got to be a massive amount of trust there.
There you see the battle and everybody behind as Ryan Hunter-Reay has about a half a car length, now almost a full car length. Here comes Will Power into the mix, and Thomas Schechter in the 12 car as well. 5 cars, and they all want the same spot.
See, and this is at 215, 16 miles an hour. As you mentioned with that trust factor, you have to hope also that the guy in the bottom, if his car starts to slide, he's smart enough to lift his foot off the gas so he doesn't continue taking the car up the road. And we both lived that, and you're just saying, come on, man, just get off the gas a little bit. But when you're on the bottom, Dario, you know, you don't want to take your foot off the gas because you don't want to lose any position.
No, absolutely not. And I think with these cars as well, when you do lift, it takes a while for it to react sometimes. And yeah, it makes for some tense moments out there.
Yeah, because you're just getting sucked along if there's cars just there in front of you.
Of all the drivers that came over from the old Champ car, who's impressed you the most?
A bunch of the guys, not only the drivers but the teams. I think it's so difficult to learn. It's something I went through in 2002 and 3 when I went to Indianapolis for the first time and went to to the IRL, and it's so different that they're really adapting well. But Servia, I mean, Oriol and I have known each other forever, and he's really impressed me. Just really everybody. I thought the guys in Newman Haas on the road and street courses have been great, and that's been good to see. And I think next year you're going to see a jump from all the teams that came over from Champ Car, and it's going to be even closer, more competitive.
Take a look at this. Helio is right behind Danica. That is a battle for 5th place. Brianne, what's the latest on Danica?
Well, Marty, Danica is complaining a little bit about Dan Weldon, who is in front of her. Apparently, she seems to think he's all over the place on the racetrack. Kyle Moyer, Danica's strategist, called over a race official, is having them look into it, trying to keep his driver happy out there on the racetrack.
So it's not only Helio that's complaining, guys.
Well, I think that he's having a problem with the car, because I think he gets going into the turn, to the first phase of the turn. He gets in the middle of the turn. It just doesn't look like he can keep it down by the white line.
Okay, on board with Helio on the top right, on board Danica top left, and then you get the big picture below where you can see the top 6 basically trying to freight train out of here.
So in this scenario, what she needs to do is to watch his line, and when he starts to go up the road just a little bit, as Elio is just taking advantage of both of them fighting and goes around the high side.
So Elio picks off 2 of them, and all of a sudden, take a look at the 4 car, Vitor Meira, he ducks underneath Danica.
Man, you hate that when that happens. You turn around, you just lost all that momentum. It will take you a couple more laps to build your speed up. And now Danica's got to make sure she doesn't lose touch with the group that's in front of her.
Well, Foyt also got around her, so she has dropped back to 7th as we're working lap 60 of 200.
I wonder how much fuel savings going on here with some of these people. You see Danica losing those positions. I wonder if they're just leaned out and trying to save some fuel.
A lot of teams at the very beginning of the day said that they were just going to run full rich and go racing, but the guys down below should know a lot more on that. Jack Arute?
Well, I can answer as far as Scott Dixon is concerned, boys. Right now, Dixon has been on a semi-fuel conservation mode since the drop of the green flag. This is what we see all the time. They've wanted to leave him behind and draft and be able to get a fuel mileage number that so far, Vince Welch, Mike Hull said, if we can do this all day, we'll be in the right position fuel-wise. Vince?
Well, Jack, fuel strategy is certainly on the mind of Tim Cindric as well, but his driver, Helio Castroneves, is being a little more aggressive. After Castroneves made that double pass on Weldon and Danica Patrick, Cindric came on the radio to Helio and he said, that fuel slot is not going to help us. We got to think bigger picture. I know what you want to do, but we've got to think big picture. Boy, that's got to be tough to hear in the driver's helmet.
And let's put the 2 of you in that position. What he's talking about is if you don't back out of the fuel, it's not going to matter if you pass him.
Yeah, I knew last year, pretty much from the first or second lap in the race, that I wasn't quick enough to win this race on speed. We had a very quick car in qualifying, and it went away in the race. So I knew my only way to win this was going to be in tactics. And so I was immediately saving fuel, immediately lifting and just sitting in the draft, the 2 Penske, 2 Ganassi cars that had passed me. And at the end of the day, that was the strategy. You got to look towards the end here. No one cares if you pass 20 or 30 cars. In those first laps. It's all about that last lap.
And that's what Dixon's so good at doing. He's done that previously, and I think that's exactly what they're saying from down below right now, Dario, is that that's what he's doing right now, sitting in third, sitting back, and letting those guys tow him along a little bit so he can conserve just a little bit of fuel. And that's exactly what Tim Cindric is asking of Helio Castroneves. But, when you got to beat the guy that's in front of you, it's pretty hard to stay back there, isn't it?
Oh, it's tough for sure. But, Scott and I, and actually Mike Hull and I, we talked about a lot about what happened last year here and, what strategy I used and my guys used. So I think that might be in the back of their heads because, they want to have the opposite result this year.
Well, remember, Scott Dixon only needs to finish 8th or better in this race. It doesn't matter what Elio does from that point on. Elio's got to go out and try and lead the most laps, also win the race and hope that Scott finishes 9th or worse. And right now, it's still in Dixon's camp. And here comes Elio on the high side, and Dixon's going to say, okay, let's not get too dicey here. And this is what he was worried about, lap traffic.
Got boxed.
So he gives up the position, keeps the car in one piece, and he's now back to 4th, and Elio has gone from 28th to 3rd, Jack.
Marty, right now, Scott Dixon is practicing every amount of discipline that he has. As Dario Franchitti alluded to, they have set out, Mike Hull and Dixon, with a scenario, with a way for this race to come to them and give them the victory. Part of the scenario is long green flag runs. By being in the pack and not leading, they're able to make, according to Mike Hull, as much as 2 additional laps of available ethanol. That's maybe one reason, Vince Welch, why Helio Castroneves chapped at the bit and made that pass.
So Jack, now Elio is running behind his teammate Ryan Briscoe, and Elio came over the radio and asked what he should do. Should he stay behind Ryan? Can he stay behind Ryan and draft and maybe save fuel at that point? Tim Cindric said, if you can pass him, we'd rather be ahead of Ryan. So look for Castroneves if he can get up on the backside and get that draft of Ryan Briscoe to make the move around the 6.
All right, I just saw your eyebrows raise when Vince said that. You're surprised, aren't you, Dario?
Yeah, now's not the time to lead. Now is definitely the time, I would say, to sit back there. I was thinking when Elio passed Scott, I thought, that's great. There's another car in front of Scott to draft him along. So now Scott's got 3 cars to save even more fuel. So it's all going to come down to the last laps for sure.
Well, but the flip side of the coin, he does need to lead the most laps, unless Dixon finishes another spot back. So maybe that's part of that strategy as well. Listen, we have got to move aside. We've got to let you go because you've got a lot of responsibilities. Thanks so much for taking the time to come up and visit with us, and looking forward to seeing you back next year.
We'll see you guys back. Thank you.
All right, Dario Franchitti, the 2007 Indy 500 and Series champion. Right now, Dixon knows exactly where Elio is, right in front of him. But it's okay. Right now, it's still Dixon's championship. Here at Chicagoland Speedway, the race and season and career with Panther Racing for Vitor Meira has come to an abrupt end as he is into the wall into turn 2. And the team, well, they were saying their salute to Vitor as he'll be leaving at the end of this race.
As we mentioned earlier, that Dan Weldon is now going over to the Panther Racing team, but they say thank you Vitor on there, but Vitor told me early this morning that his manager got an email to say that Vitor's services would no longer be needed next year. So I thought that was a very strange way to tell you, a driver, that you're not coming back next year. Usually that's done by a phone call, but they got it via email.
All right, well, we should be seeing a second round of pit stops. Remember, the last time we pitted was on lap number 39, and here we are working lap number 77, and you can see that everybody is laid out, and everybody is coming in, and it's the Ethanol triple pits, and we'll send it to Jack Arute.
Everybody waiting for their cars. The second of the 4 anticipated pit stops. On the bottom is Scott Dixon. In the middle, Helio Castroneves, Tony Kanaan on the top. They're all pitting in close proximity, one to the other. Dixon has the advantage as the points leader. He's in the last pit. Penske's team dips in. Castroneves, no changes on his car, no changes on Scott Dixon's car. Tony Kanaan should be finished first, but will he be able to maintain the lead? A long stop for Scott Dixon, and he loses valuable positions in a battle of tenths of a second in pit stops, guys.
Well, and the winner was Castroneves off pit lane. He picks up 2. Kanaan drops 2, and Dixon comes out in 4th as the battle of the championship continues. Take a look. Here it is.
In a race to the line.
And the 3-car leads. So our third different leader, and here comes Dixon as he comes out in 4th, Dan Weldon 5th. And A.J. Foyt the 4th in 6th. So as they continue under this second caution, we'll tell you that we'll return after this message from our ABC stations.
You start first, you finish first. It could not get any better.
Scott Dixon is going to complete his perfect storm with a win at the Indianapolis 500. And the question is, can Scott Dixon do the double, win the 500 and the championship? Dario did it. Sam Hornish did it. And let's get an update from pit lane from Jack Arute.
One of the things that happens throughout the course of the race is Mike Hull is in constant communication with Scott Dixon, his driver. Tries to keep Scott apprised of what is happening, not only with his car, but also with other teams. And one of the things, Mike, that you have been doing is letting Scott know what Helio Castroneves finds himself in a position of doing, and that's between a rock and a hard spot in terms of getting those 3 points for leading the most laps.
Well, I don't know about that. You know, we just the best thing we can do is just let Scott know what's going on, because obviously he can't see everything around him. And you know, you got to give a lot of credit to Helio. He drove that first segment, was a heck of a segment for him. For him to get up to where he is now, that's the mark of a true champion. No matter what happens today, he's done a great job, and more power to those guys to the end.
Let's talk a little bit about your fuel conservation mode that you've been practicing since Homestead in terms of getting ready to have what you need here for the championship. Do you like the numbers you're seeing right now?
Well, I think the numbers are good. They're like they always have been. You know, what you try to do is you try to work, you practice in the first part of the race to be good for the last part of the race. So that's really what we're working on. And it's as good as what we've seen. It's not any better. So let's just see what happens as we go along here today.
What about the other side of the team strategist coin? Let's check in with Vince Welch.
With Tim Cendrick. Tim, your driver's gone from worst to first in 78 laps. How would you address the situation at this point?
Elliot, one finger this time by, one finger. Yeah, I think where we need to be, you know, we can control our own destiny, only the fact that we can try and win the race and lead some laps. So, you know, the 9 car, they're strong, and for them to finish out of the top 10 today is going to be tough, but we'll just do the things we can control. And so far, he did a great job driving up through the field, and obviously the 3 car guys did a great job on the pit stop here.
Well, they sure did, guys. Picked up a couple of positions, Brienne.
Vince, I've caught up with Vitor Mira. Vitor, I know you wanted to see a replay. We can't give that to you right now, but what do you believe happened to the race car?
It's definitely something on the right rear. If it was a puncture or something on the suspension, or who knows. Right after the kink, I started to get loose, lifted, and then crashed it. I mean, it's a shame that it had to end like that, but I still really appreciative on all the 3 good years I had with Panther, and it's all good.
It's all good, guys. Words right from Vitor Mira's mouth.
And as we go back to green flag racing, all of you switching over from the NASCAR race where Jimmy Johnson won, Casey Kane missed the chase, as we've got a chase for the championship, working lap 84 of 200, and it is Helio Castroneves, started 28th, has worked his way to the front of this field, and the man he's chasing for the championship, Scott Dixon, is in 4th. The scenario is, in this case, Dixon must finish 9th or worse, and Helio's got to lead the most laps, and so far he has led 6th. He's got a chance to lead the most, though, because we are not at halfway. I hope that resets everything for everybody, and we'll tell you that Dixon right now is back in 5th.
I'm a little surprised that both the Penske cars are leaving the low side open for Helio, or excuse me, for Tony Kanaan, and Helio's in the lead, just running down there close to the line. Dick, the next situation here is you have to make sure you can run a little bit of clean air, but as those 2 Penske cars up front don't look like they maybe have as maximum speed as the guys trying to chase them from behind, looks like Tony Kanaan, who's in that yellow car this weekend, might have the opportunity to sneak on the lower side.
Dan Weldon on the high side of Kanaan in the 11, and Weldon in the 10. And I guess my question is does it look to you like he's helping his teammate?
Well, I think he certainly is, but we're running speeds of 213 miles an hour. We saw the opening speed somewhere around 215. We've seen speeds up to 217, 218 right now. No doubt Helio wants to conserve a little bit of fuel. He's probably throttled back on his fuel trim. And right now, that's probably the reason for the slower pace. And then his wingman right now, the 6th car of Ryan Briscoe, is probably just trying to make a line that makes it difficult for everybody else from behind to go around.
That slow car you saw coming out of pit lane was the 12 of Thomas Schechter. He has fallen back. Look at this log jam towards the front now, as there is about 8 cars in this mix and more trying to join it.
Yeah, they're absolutely saving fuel because the speeds right now are a little slower than they're capable of, and without a doubt, they're running in formation right now, and the guys behind want to get going.
Well, and if Briscoe stays right there on the outside, it forces anybody who wants to try and pass for the lead to even go farther and higher on this racetrack. Take a look at the points championship right now, and you would see it would come down to 10 if it ended the way it is right now. And remember the 10 points he lost for the blocking penalty last week? Oh, that would get everybody up in a lather.
Well, then you'd go to a tie in points, and there's no doubt Dixon would get it for most wins in the season. Still wouldn't make Helio feel any better, but...
And as we mentioned, I asked you if you thought Weldon was helping his teammate. Briscoe is certainly helping Helio by staying out there. It just creates so much more ground that everybody has to cover. And here comes Kanaan trying to look underneath. There's the view from up top.
But the problem for Kanaan is that he's trying to stick his nose underneath those 2 cars in front, and they just are taking a lot of air away from his car, so the aerodynamics are not going to be as good. And I'm sure the spotters are letting them know exactly what's going on. Ryan Briscoe's spotter's probably going, you know something? He's there, he's in the back quarter, he's looking. And every time they come off a turn 2, Tony Kanaan and group just lose a little bit. They gain it back here in 3 and 4.
Right now, 1.1 seconds separates the top 11 cars in this pack. You know, we had a chance to talk to Helio about the focus that he and Dixon are in when you're in a championship hunt.
I remember when I was in that situation, I keep worrying about where he's going to be, what position, what are they doing, you know. And all of a sudden, I lost the championship because I was focused on what he was doing. And in our situation right now, we know what we need to do. We need to win. Boom, done. And that's what we're gonna go for it.
Take a look as we've got 3 cars going side by side as they have now got the 2 car of A.J. Foyt, the 4th in this mix. And again, Elio needs to lead the most laps, so he's got the low side. The sandwich meat in the middle is Briscoe, and Weldon's on the high side.
That's 3 abreast, Marty, and they're now doing speeds about 212, 213 that last time around. I mean, this is just a lot slower than I thought it was going to be. Almost looks like the front row starting at the Indianapolis 500 when they go 3 wide like that.
It has allowed this to become an 11-car battle, and look at Weldon now. He's going to stay up in that high groove. Is there enough clean pavement up there? Remember, we've got a little marbles that'll start building up as the race progresses, but so far so good. We've seen 3 wide here before working, and right now, Weldon is right there.
And this is where the spotters are so important, especially for Briscoe right now, who is in the middle. He's getting the information about what's up top and what's below.
Dixon has dropped back to 7th, and this is his worst nightmare right now.
Still 3 wide.
Well, he does. If anything happens in front of him, Marty, he does not want to be involved in this right now, because this is what we talked about this morning in the drivers' meeting afterwards. He came to me and said, I am just worried about stuff that's out of my control, a mechanical problem or an accident up front that could take me out. Jackaroo?
Scott, that's exactly what Scott Dixon is doing right now. He has been in constant communication and with Mike Hull and with his spotter. What they want to make sure is that they've got room to avoid anything that happens in front. Dixon has repeatedly assured his team that his car is good, a little bit understeered, but that he is making fuel and playing this conservatively. That is one of the reasons why Dixon is dropped to the back of, as you say, this queue.
Well, another guy in that mix right around Dixon. Look at the 19 in front of him there. That's Mario Marias, the 19-year-old. He has moved up 21 spots since the start of the race, and he's up to 6. He started next to last, so the 19-year-old with not a lot of oval experience is right in front of the championship leader.
And you have to also remember there's a lot of drivers here today that are auditioning for jobs for 2009. We know the top 3 teams have got all their drivers in place, but you got drivers like E.J. Vizo right now that's in the 33 that's currently running in 5th, and he wants to win a race this weekend, so he's not really worried too much about the points championship.
Well, and you mentioned Vizo in the 33. There's quite a few guys out there that really don't like E.J. He's very aggressive. We've seen it. He makes no apologies for it. And he, too, is in this mix right now as we are working lap 99 of 200. Vince?
Well, imagine E.J. Vizo, the challenge he faced when he came into this season, obviously driving a new car. He obviously was a new driver to this series, going to new racetracks, and he had 0 oval experience at the beginning of this season. So E.J. Vizo has made quite an impression, some positive, some negative, but I'll tell you what, guys, he's made a lot of strides for a driver who'd never seen an oval before getting to the Indy Racing League at Homestead.
Well, it was Jack Arute that was talking to one of the crew chiefs about if I was starting a team, I'd like a guy like Vizo. As there's the halfway mark. We're halfway home because I can dial a guy back, but I can't make him aggressive, and Vizo is definitely aggressive. Take a look at the championship chase right now. 2 points separate the championship contenders. Castroneves is leading up front. It's not over yet. But the drama continues to build here at the Chicagoland. Take a look at this lead pack as everybody is in fuel conservation mode, and we've got yellow as we have debris on the racetrack. So our 3rd caution, and Elio Castroneves is the race leader. But Dan Weldon has led 5 laps as they've been swapping it back and forth. And let's take a look at our Firestone lap leaders as the guys dial it down as we're under our 3rd caution. And you can see Ryan Briscoe's led the most. But here's the key. That's 5 more laps that Elio hasn't led. So Dan Weldon is helping his teammate because right now, the way it shapes up, guess who's in 10th place? Mr. Dixon.
Well, there's also 93 more laps to go, so in this scenario, Elio still has a lot of time to continue to run up there, but the pace is amazing. We're down to 210, 211 miles an hour. You saw that piece of debris there. It looked like a camera cover off one of the cars laying on the track, so they will slow the pace down, send out the Delphi safety crew to get that picked up. And right now for Elio Castroneves, as everybody's saving a little fuel, the pace they were running at, we would have seen pit stops around lap 130. It'll be interesting to see the scenario now. Everybody probably will pit, Marty.
Take a look at the top of your screen. Right now we have a dead heat as far as the points because Dixon is in 10th. That is why the laps led is so crucial for Elio, because that's 3 bonus points. That would be the difference in the championship if it finished right now. This is unbelievable. 3 races ago, we thought this was over. 78 points.
We really did, and I'm sure Scott Dixon and team did. I spoke to some of the crew members, and they really thought that it was going to be done. And then when it didn't happen at Sonoma, then you get to Detroit, and then it's not done there. So it's been a long week for the crew to get the car ready to come here to Chicago.
So it looks like about everybody is set out. And since Nashville, take a look at the 6 races. Elio has 1 win, top 3 in 6 times, and he's led 203 laps. And we found out what the debris was. Oriol Servia lost a mirror out on the racetrack. Don't want anybody running over that and cutting it. Do you see the left side mirror is gone on the CDW 5 car? And Oriol, 7th in the points right now. He is the best of the transition drivers that came over when the merger, the unification happened. They've had a very strong year. A 4th last week was his season best. He wants to get on the podium so badly. But right now, it is now ready for pit lane, and everybody's coming. And Jack Arute, they're heading your way.
Marty, remember, if you win the championship, it's a $1 million bonus. Each and every crew member knows that they get a share of that in most scenarios. It will be Weldon in the middle, Castroneves on the top, Scott Dixon on the bottom. For Weldon and Dixon, they will go with new Firestone Firehawks, but with Castroneves, they have decided to go with scuffs, tires that have been worked in and at least through a sort of a heat cycle. Let's see who gets away first. Castroneves away first, and again, Dixon's crew spends an inordinate amount of time packing the car full of fuel. We have a car that has collided. It looks like Buddy Rice. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Buddy, with the new sponsorship from Dad's Root Beer, which will go into next year, obviously a problem in pit lane, and the whole back half of the car is mangled. Take a look. Tony Kanaan picked up 2 spots. Dixon picked up 2 as well. He's now up to 8th. That's significant because that's where he needs to be in the championship hunt. Buddy, very frustrated. Not the way this team wanted to end their 2008 campaign. We've got one look at this. Let's go back and see if we can see what happened.
Always a dangerous time in the pit lane, and you can see the cars coming out on the top side of your screen, and he is just getting pushed out towards the outside, and I'm not sure which car that is. Looks like it possibly could be, I'm not even going to guess at this point in time because it's too far away, but in that scenario, I can see why Buddy is mad, because the car on the inside just did not leave him very much room whatsoever to go onto the high side.
It was the 06 of Graham Rahal, and you notice as he went by their pit, he threw his Hans device. That's $2,000, buddy. Don't do that. It's a very important piece of equipment, but I can understand his frustration. All right, here you're on board with Justin Wilson. Take a look. Yeah, there's the 06 making the contact. Stay with us. Back here at Chicagoland under our 3rd caution of the day, as we have got the race lead up to Elio Castroneves. More on that in a moment, but let's talk about the race for the chase, because the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series begins at New Hampshire. It's presented by GoDaddy.com on ABC next Sunday. Coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown at 1 Eastern. For more, just log on to ESPN.com. All right, let's talk about what's going on here, because Elio Castroneves is in 1st place. Scott Dixon is in 8th, so he is back in control of his own destiny. Dixon is. That's where he needs to stay. We have been told the 06 of Graham Rahal, improper lane change, forgot to signal, and he also lost a mirror, so he got penalized to go to the back. Now they've got to fix the mirror, and the same with the 5 car. So basically what they're going to do is just take the side pod off on 1, it looks like, and it looks like here they're going to try and duct tape it?
Well, that ain't going to stay. I can assure you of that one. There's no 200-mile-an-hour duct tape that's going to work. But with the collision between Buddy Rice and Graham Rahal was trying to make enough room for his teammate Justin Wilson, who was pitted in front of him, to allow him to come out into the pit lane on the wide side, and that's the reason why the 06 of Grant Rahal was trying to make so much room, but maybe not intentional, but it certainly took out Buddy Rice.
And we're waiting for the 5 car to come in. We've got 1 to go, this time by at the stripe. We're working lap 116 of 200, and let's reset it for you. It's Castroneves in front, Ryan Briscoe second, Dan Weldon third, Tony Kanaan fourth, EJ Vizo fifth, AJ Foyt fourth, sixth, Danica Patrick seventh, and Dixon eighth. Vince, what's the latest from Elio's camp?
Well, despite the odds being stacked against them, at least they're keeping their sense of humor. After that yellow came out, Tim Cindric got on the radio to Elio and he said, "Hey, good job out there. Looks like you've been kind of busy." And Elio very nicely said, "A little bit." So, you know, they're keeping it light, guys.
Well, as we get ready to go back to green, don't forget, only 1 driver's ever gone from last to first. That was Buddy Lazier. He started 26th at Phoenix, and right now, Elio started 28th. He's leading this race as we're working lap 117 and flying around Chicagoland once again.
Be interested to see what kind of pace they turn on here after this restart. Remember last time 210, 211, capable of going a lot faster. Where will the fuel mode be here? And realistically, we should be able to get this done in 1 more stop, somewhere around lap 155 to 157.
Got a crash in turn number 4, and it looks like it might be Sarah Fisher in the Dollar General car, the 67. And yes, unfortunately for Sarah, it is, as she was running 19th at the time. And of course, Sarah, last time we saw her was at Kentucky. She had a really good run going there until late in the race, but a lot of damage to the left side.
Delphi safety crew is there very quickly. Talked to Sarah this morning, and she's really working on next year. If they're running full time, she will be very competitive. As you know, it's very difficult to be able to turn around and be competitive when you've only come out a couple of times. But that team has done a great job in a short amount of time with the resources they have.
Well, we're under our 4th caution, and unfortunately we can't show you a replay. We just don't have a camera on that section of the track. But it looks like Sarah will be extricated from the car. So the visor is up and the crew is there, and looks like they're trying to get her out.
Well, Marty, when you hit that hard, I mean, you really have knocked yourself around in the car quite heavily, and you know, if you're conscious, you still get the wind knocked out of you, and when you hit something at 180 or 200 miles an hour, you'll be feeling that for a couple of days. So for Sarah right now, who's climbing out of the car, looks to be okay, but she will certainly be sore for the remainder of the week.
Well, she is a fan favorite, and she'll get a big hand from everybody here, and whoop, she is limping. So the left ankle, leg, something down there is not feeling too good for Sarah Fisher right now. And according to one of our observers in that section, the car just stepped around on her, and then she hit the left side as it backed around and went to the wall. All right, now that we know Sarah is going to be taken to the infield care center, we'll get an update on her condition. There is Scott Dixon. He is exactly where he needs to be, and take a look at the points. He would win by 4. That's why if Elio leads the most laps, that's why that position is so important, because he would still win the championship by 1. Jack, what's going on?
Well, Marty, that's not good enough for the crew down here. 49-year-old Ricky Davis, there he is. He's driven sprint cars. He's worked on championship teams. He changes the outside front tire for Scott Dixon. Their stops have been maybe just a 1/10 of a second off. And Ricky Davis has just told me moments ago, it's my fault. He said, I've got to get quicker. They are trying to attain perfection to match what they want to give their driver, and that's a championship. At 49 years old, Davis is still out there in harm's way and still delivering.
Hey, Jack, let me ask you something. Are you sensing any kind of sense of desperation on their part?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The desire instead, Marty, to be picture perfect. Let's face it, those last few stops, they were packing in fuel. They were making sure that they had everything they needed, just the same way that Helio Castroneves' crew was doing likewise. And when you're talking about a 1/10 of a second, and that's all the difference between Castroneves' last stop and the Target Chip Ganassi Scott Dixon last stop, a 1/10 of a second.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Well, yeah, and the thing that I keep coming back to is 3 races ago, we were 78 points apart. Right now, it's down to 4 the way they're running. And that's why I'm wondering what is going through their heads and through their stomachs. All right, you're on board with Scott Dixon. He is right now in 8th position. Helio Castroneves is where he needs to be. We'll be back after this message from your ABC station. Well, we welcome you back to Chicagoland Speedway and the peak Antifreeze IndyCar 300. So we are under our 4th caution. If you're wondering if that's a record, no, the most was 6 in 2004. Hopefully we don't get that far. Great crowd on hand. If you're just tuning in, it's Marty Reid, Scott Goodyear up top, Jack Arute, Brianne Pettigo, and Vince Welch. You're up.
Well, Tim, your man is leading the race, and I just heard you talk about the plan, and you said keep it off the white line, so at least you guys have kept the sense of humor. Tim's asked us to hold off just a moment. But guys, it's interesting when they were talking about the problem area on the track for Helio seems to be down the backstretch. That's where they feel like maybe they're losing speed. So they're discussing about which gear will serve them best, 5th or 6th down the backstretch.
Well, and 6 would take less fuel. And 5th's going to give you a bit more speed, but we saw that previously that he didn't have the speed off of 2. He was better off of 3 and 4.
We're back to green flag racing here at Chicagoland. Working lap 125, 75 to go.
And Marty, that time over the line from Helio Castroneves, he has now led 40 laps, also like his teammate Ryan Briscoe. So next time around, he would have led the most laps in the race. And at that point in time, take the 3 points, but still many more laps to go.
Yeah, that's true, but he's got to keep remember, it's not quite mathematically out of the realm of possibility for someone else to deny him that. As you see the 0-2, as Scott Dixon's got his hands full with Wilson. In fact, Dixon gets bumped back to 9th place. Meanwhile, up front, Castroneves just continues to motor on. 13th race this year that Helio has led. Take a look a little bit further back, and you can see that Dixon's trying to get underneath again. And you can see that that is oh so important, the difference between 8th and 9th place.
And remember, the other drivers out there know that there's a championship race going on, but they're not concerned about where Scott Dixon's going to finish. The only one that may be there to help him would be his teammate, Dan Weldon, who's currently running in 3rd. But for all these other drivers, they're looking for good finishes, maybe the best finish that they've had so far this year. And maybe they're also trying to impress some new employer, because there's a lot of drivers that do not have signed contracts for next season. So they're not going to give a lead off to a guy like Scott Dixon.
All right, well, Dixon is losing contact with the lead pack, and the difference is we're running laps up front at 2:13. Remember, after the last stint, it was 2:11. Jack, what's going on?
Marty, they're preparing for the end of the race, anticipating that they are going to need to make a green flag pit stop for a splash and go. Mike Hull just radioed and cautioned his drivers, said, look, we're going to need to make mileage to reduce the number of laps at the end. So they're getting him and forcing Dixon to be back there in the middle of the pack, making ethanol.
Keep working on it, Scott. We'll catch him. Doing exactly what you need to do now. Good pace. By 5 to the rear. Now try and get her while you got her by herself.
All right, you heard the radio. I've got a question for you.
Keep up this pace. Good pace.
That is so hard to do. You're sitting back there, and basically the car is being driven from the pit lane, and all you want to do is start going faster and move yourself up towards the front.
And you see Scott going around Danica. As you take a look at the Firestone telemetry, that now moves him up to 6th position. And this is what I was wanting to ask you. Why wouldn't you just try and get right on Helio's back bumper? Put pressure on him, and if you can press him that he has to turn up the fuel, if you both run out of fuel, guess who wins the championship?
Well, absolutely, and it's very difficult for Scott Dixon to be where he is right now. Those cars that are in front, you heard him lift off the throttle going through the turn. Your car's not going to be perfect for you as you're going through the turn because of all those cars in front taking the air off of your car. And he very smartly just sort of raised his foot off the throttle very smoothly to make sure it still kept a nice smooth line.
Oh, take a look. This is getting a little dicey up front. That's Tony Kanaan in the mix as well. And Kanaan now moves to the lead. And that is bad news for Helio because he has only led 46 laps. He would have control of it as long as Ryan Briscoe or Tony Kanaan doesn't lead another 13 laps. If Kanaan could move ahead of him, and that could theoretically happen, that would deny him the 3 bonus points. On board with Castroneves.
No doubt that Helio will save a little bit of fuel following Kanaan, but he's also very aware of laps led like we've been talking about all race. The fuel window now is probably going to be somewhere around 1 lap 58 or to 162.
And you can see that Dixon now has moved up to 4th position from our aerial view, right behind Ryan Briscoe. And this is what I was wondering if, you know, I'm looking at it, I'm saying if I put the pressure on Elio, maybe he makes a mistake and maybe we run him out of fuel. Jack, what's going on?
Marty, remember when you visited with Dario Franchitti and he told us that he had sat down with Mike Hall last evening and with Scott Dixon and they discussed the winning strategy by Franchitti 1 year ago. This is starting to shake out the same way Franchitti drove this race 1 year ago. I'm beginning to wonder if that hasn't worked into their plans. Parry and thrust, save fuel, come up, run a few laps, and then drop back.
Well, he's in a perfect position right now, as you see wife Emma, as she has the headset on. His mom, Glynis, right there, she's clapping, saying, yes, I like it. This is all he has to do, stay right there, and there's nothing Elio can do about it.
Well, you know, I'm watching Emma on the right-hand side, and all the years that I drove, my wife would be in the pit lane, and Leslie would say, you know, I see you go by for about 4 or 5 seconds, and it's the other 15 when you're going around. We don't know what's going on. It's very tough on us. And I always think it's easier on the driver because you're in the seat and you know what's happening all the way around the racetrack.
All right, Tony Kanaan has now led 43 laps, as he has got about 4 more to go, and he would retake the lead in laps led. So Elio Castroneves needs that 3 bonus points. Will Tony Kanaan take them away from him and make it even more difficult? Well, you saw it in side-by-side as E.J. Vizo on the 200th start for Keith Wiggins and HVM Racing ends up in the wall. As let's take another quick look at what happened to EJ.
33 car on the bottom of the screen. Everything looks to be pretty good right now. That back end just starts to come around. You can see the tire looks like it deflated and came off the rim. And that was the reason why the car went around.
So the right rear, see if have some kind of issue there. It just looked like it went. I don't know if he ran over something. But E.J. Vizo's day is over. His season ends as he had worked his way up into the top 5 at one point, but now will be a DNF here in his final race of 2008. All right, let's get back to the business at hand because the race leaders, Tony Kanaan is now led 46 laps. So has Elio Castroneves. This race off of pit road could be critical. Vince, let's send it your way.
Well, and remember Tony Kanaan working with a new engineer this weekend. Alan McDonald, his engineer, replacing Eric Cowden, who resigned this weekend. But the real battle of the bottom 2 cars. Castroneves in the middle, Dixon on the bottom. Dixon trying to become the 4th straight driver to win the Indy 500 and the Series Championship in the same season. This will be their last pit stop. Both cars going to sticker tires. Castroneves is away, goes by Dixon, and now Scott Dixon gets out. Elio Castroneves and the Team Penske crew has been spot on in the pits today.
Yes, and Tony Kanaan loses 4 spots. They had problems on the left rear. And we're hearing Dixon may have a problem. Jack?
Here's what happened on that pit stop. Ricky Davis, as we've alluded to, they had a tire get away from him, not from Ricky's side, but from the left side, and it rolled directly in front of Scott Dixon. Davis had to get up, chase the tire down. 10 yards away it had rolled, and that was costly for Scott Dixon.
All right, let's go back and show you another look at the stop.
Now watch on the left front, the tire comes off, he drops it down, but it ends up bouncing back up and rolling out towards the pit lane. Ricky Davis sees that, is alert of it, but he had to pick up that wheel and tire before Scott Dixon could peel out of the pit lane.
And you know, Scott also seemed to miss his mark by about a foot, and it caused the team to have to move a little bit more as well. There's another look at it from there. So Scott Dixon right now, as we have got a lot of sorting out to do here on the racetrack. As you get one more look at it, we'll get it for you. Right now, it says Milka Duno is in the lead. Back here at Chicagoland, you're on board with Scott Dixon. He is in 7th place right now. That controls his own fate. We've just got an update. We'll get more with Sarah, but we can tell you Sarah Fisher, X-rays negative. That's good news. And right now, Milka Duno is leading her first race this year, and she is out in front. and Helio Castroneves is listed in second. And as of right now, Tony Kanaan has led the most laps. Now you see that is lap traffic as we're back to green flag racing. That's Marty Roth in the second position, but he is several laps down. 3 wide, Dixon, that's a vulnerable spot on the high side for him. And he backs out.
Well, that was a smart move, and his spotter would be telling him what's going on there. That it started to go from 2 wide to 3 wide. We talked about the spotters, and that's very important.
And they're telling Mario Moraes he's going to have to fall in behind the 11-car Kanaan. Jack?
Here's the conversation with the spotter. 3 wide, 3 wide, 3 wide, 3 wide. That was the way they let Scott Dixon know that he was 3 wide on the outside.
Yeah, a little urgency, like, get out of there, quickly. All right, as we continue now, as we're closing in, lap 146, there is Milka being passed by Helio Castroneves. So Castroneves is going to retake the race lead. So give Milka credit. She has stayed on the lead lap throughout this race. And here we are 146 in. So give her a tip of the hat, because Lord knows we have picked on her when she has done some things that weren't so stylish. Take a look also as there's Danica going around Milka. I'm sure they didn't wave to each other. Dan Whelan on the high side in the 10 car trying to go around the Motorola Special as Danica holds off. And as we move a little bit further back, you'll see Tony Kanaan in that mix in the yellow number 11. And then you pick up Scott Dixon in the 7th position right now as he is going around Milka as well.
And for Scott, he can start to get going just a little bit faster than he did probably before, because everybody's in the same boat after that last pit stop. If it goes green, they will not make it all the way to the end. They'll all have to come in for a splash of fuel, probably with about 10 laps left to go. So now's a time when you know that, you can try and run just maybe a little bit quicker pace. The only time that would change around is if we end up with another yellow. You might just make it to the end.
Take a look at the points, and you can see that Dixon now leads by 5 over Castroneves as we're approaching the 3/4 mark of this race. We can tell you EJ Vizo has been checked and released from the medical center. And look at this battle up front as it continues. There are 6 cars in this mix with Castroneves, Briscoe, Patrick, Weldon, Kanaan, and Dixon.
Pace has quickened a little bit, Marty. You're now running around 214 miles an hour on average most laps. And you saw Weldon again. The car comes from the bottom, starts to move itself up. We talked about that before as he's now trying to go down the low side. You'll see him back out of it. His car has not been able to run down by the white line all day long. Just uses up too much road.
Let's update you on Helio. He would get the 3 bonus points right now. He has led 51 laps. Tony Kanaan is second with 47. He has not mathematically clinched those 3 points, though. There's his wingman, Ryan Briscoe. Briscoe, who won his 3rd pole of the season, 4th of his career. And remember, the last time that he was at this track was 2005 when he ended up in the turn 2 wall. And everybody was holding their breath, wondering if he was going to come out of it alive.
You know what's going to be interesting is we see Dixon and Danica start to go at it right there. Dixon very smartly gets out of it. As I said before, it is so hard to drive when you're just trying to coast around, when you don't have your foot mashed down to the floor and trying to waste yourself all the way to the front, Jackaroo.
Scott Dixon lost his concentration for just a moment. He was so angry at what happened in that confrontation with Danica Patrick. Not only did he lose that spot, but now he dips to the inside of Moraes, who has been battling him as well. All of a sudden, they're trying to get Dixon refocused.
And did you have that happen in the cockpit sometimes?
Well, a lot of times, and that's what I'm talking about, when you're trying to go towards a championship, and although I wasn't ever trying to save points leading an IndyCar championship, I was always chasing it like Helio was, like in 2000. In other formulas, when you sat back and tried to just collect points with a race or 2 left to go, that's what I'm talking about, the experience. It's so difficult to make yourself do that. It's not how you are built.
All right, you saw Dixon get around Tony Kanaan, so that moves Dixon up to 5th.
Settle in, all right? You don't got to win the thing here. Settle in.
That's Packy Wheeler, his spotter, saying, hey, just settle in. And he's right. He does not have to win this race. Castroneves has to win the race, and he needs that 9 car to drop back. Right now, the 9 car is trying to move up.
And talk about winning the race. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with team orders with Penske right now. Obviously, Ryan Briscoe's going to stay behind Castroneves and let Castroneves go ahead and lead laps. But if they come down to the very last lap and Scott Dixon is saying running 3rd or 4th and Elio's not going to win the championship, will Ryan Briscoe take a run at his teammate and try to win the event?
Right now, Dan Weldon keeps trying to get his nose in there, and you saw that Dixon got around Danica, so he has moved into 4th. Danica is 5th. There's Emma and Mom Glynis. They're both cheering on from pit lane as we are now working lap 158. Tim Cindric has that look of, gosh, we're doing all we can. It's still not enough. Right now, Weldon is trying to put as much pressure as he can on the 3 car of Helio Castroneves. Castroneves is now up to 57 laps led. While all this continues, let's get you updated on Sarah Fisher. Brianne Pettigo caught up with her outside the medical center.
Caught up with Sarah Fisher outside the medical center. Sarah, first of all, are you okay? I know you were limping.
I busted up my left foot a little bit, but you know, I'm just really happy that the Dollar General people could come out and watch. You know, I guess if you're not out winning the race, it's another thing to go out like that. We're just, you know, trying to go into the off season, trying to put together a program for next year, and real thankful that everybody was able to be here.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
What a wild ride it's been for Sarah Fisher in the first season owning and driving her own team.
Well, you remember the crash that she had back at Indianapolis. She ended up 30th there. She fell off the pace after having a good run, finished 15th at Kentucky, and now she's out of the race here, shown in 24th position. So as we continue here on working lap 160 of 200, 40 laps still to go. We'll return after this message from our ABC stations. You're watching ESPN on ABC. Monday Night Football returns to ESPN with a special doubleheader. 7 Eastern, it's the Packers and the Vikings at Lambeau Field. And then at 10:15, the Broncos take on the Oakland Raiders. Monday Night Football. Are you ready for Monday night? I am. It's tomorrow. It'll be a dandy. I'll tell you what, we got a dandy right here for the championship at Chicagoland. Dan Weldon trying to get to the race lead. He's in that red number 10. Helio Castroneves down low in the 3 car. He has led the most laps, 66 and counting. And there is Ryan Briscoe, our pole sitter, trying to help his teammate win a championship. But Scott Dixon is in the catbird seat right now, running in 4th. If he stays there, he claims the championship no matter what Helio does. And there is Tony Kanaan. Kanaan really is the only threat that could take the laps led away from Helio, because Helio's led 66, Kanaan's led 47. Take a look at the points. It would be a 9-point difference. And remember when it was just 2 races ago, 78?
And as much as he will be disappointed on that, you have to look back, as you mentioned, how far he's come in the last 2 races. But remember, Helio has never won the championship for Penske. He's won the Indianapolis 500 twice, and the first championship in the Indy Racing Series to Penske was from Sam Hornish, and that was the goal that Penske wanted to have done: win the championship and then win an Indy 500 for Sam Hornish, and they got that accomplished for each other.
Scott Dixon's wife Emma again, as she is settled in and trying to keep her calm. Let's talk about the fact that a 9-point difference. This will bring everything into play again from last week at Belle Isle. As you see, Hideki Mutoh, the Rookie of the Year candidate, and boy, they've got trouble. Vince?
Guys, Hideki Mutoh is in, and you see they've got their rear cowling off now. Interesting here because Mutoh came into this race with a 13-point advantage in the Bombardier Learjet Rookie of the Year battle over Justin Wilson, who won last week at Belle Isle. Wilson and his crew on the radio have talked throughout the course of this race about keeping an eye on Hideki. Where is Hideki? It's very important as you're on board now with Wilson in the McDonald's car. Very important for Wilson to win the Rookie of the Year award. You get a $50,000 bonus, but it's also a nice little feather in the cap.
And Wilson's running 12th right now, and Mutoh is 20th, 7 laps down. So we'll have to figure out what happens there. Right now, we're figuring on what happens up front. And with a 9-point difference, we mentioned it a little bit. Remember the 10 points that Helio lost last week when he was forced to move over after the blocking call on Justin Wilson. And of course, every Helio fan right now is cringing at the thought of losing this championship by 9.
But you know, on Friday when we came here to the track, I went over to the Indy Racing League trailer and met with Brian Barnhart, the president of the competition side, who made that call. And I challenged him on why he did what he did. And he explained it in such a fashion that I completely agree with, that he not only impeded the flow of the car that was coming from behind, he just simply blocked not only once but twice. And in that scenario, we're told in the drivers' meeting each and every time, you are not allowed to block. And I think in a scenario when you get to a place like Chicagoland here, and if it's early in the race, well, then maybe you can get that pass back if somebody actually made that move on you. But when you get to a place like Detroit, which is impossible to pass at, and then it comes down for the finish of the race, and then it also comes down for the win, then in that scenario, you really need to have a stiff penalty.
All right, we are heading down the backstretch, and we are getting close to having 25 laps to go. Weldon has taken the lead from Castroneves. Emma, she's looking nervous. So is Tim Cindric. All right, back here at Chicagoland Speedway, you're on board with Elio Castroneves. He is leading Dan Weldon right now. Ryan Briscoe is third. Scott Dixon is fourth. Tony Kanaan is fifth. We can tell you, you saw Danica Patrick come in for a fuel stop. That was with 22 laps to go. We are now working with 20 laps remaining. So obviously Danica had the wick turned up.
And the leaders right now are coming up to lap traffic up ahead. And if Elio Castroneves is going to have to get himself up high a little bit because the car in front's on the low line, he's trying to do that now, trying to push Weldon a little bit high so he does not get boxed in.
All this happening at 213 miles an hour. There's Ryan Briscoe in third, and there is Scott Dixon trying to give just enough space. And we got yellow on the racetrack. Yellow on the racetrack, and this will change everybody's fuel strategy. There's a turn 3, and it is Mario Marias. He had been running in 6th position. Had a really good run going for Dale Coyne Racing, who is celebrating their 325th start, and it looks like problems with the right front.
Right front suspension has collapsed there. You can see that. And he's gone off and hit the wall. Now, we don't know whether the suspension collapsed to make him hit the wall or he hit the wall, which then collapses suspension. But either way, his day is done.
All right, let's tell you, with 18 laps to go, that man right there has done one thing he needed to do. He has now clinched mathematically the laps led 3 bonus points. So now it's all down to what Scott Dixon does as far as where he finishes. 8th or better, and it doesn't matter. It's his championship. Right now, Dixon is running in 4th.
Now the pressure is on the crew. This will be the last pit stop. The guys will come in, do their work. You think the teams are not feeling some pressure right now? Absolutely.
And the question also is, do you take tires or do you just take fuel? I mean, you can get out a lot quicker.
Well, the tires right now are so good, the tires that they provide by Firestone, that I don't think that tires are going to really be too much of anybody's worry, although they'll have them laid out. Whether they change them or not, we'll have to wait to see.
You heard Jack Arute talk about the difference in pit lane. We measure the time from the time they hit pit in to the time they pit out. Castroneves' crew has been 2 seconds quicker than Scott Dixon's crew. And we've seen those little flaws that Jack pointed out, where the tire got away the last time. This is one of those moments where they don't want to have that mistake because it could cost them and get them outside that top 8 position.
There's as much pressure on the crew members as there is the driver here today, and also the management making the decisions of what's going on.
Ricky Davis, he's getting ready. There's Rick Reineman on the left side of your screen. The guys on the right front that control these crew chiefs on these cars. Both of them old, wily, cagey veterans, and they know they've been in this situation before. And the pits are open. And Jack, I'm going to send it to you early because let's talk a little bit about what they're going to do. Do you think they'll go tires? Have they said anything?
I think neither team will go for tires, although they're laid out. So watch on the right hand of your screen. On the pit stops, you want to watch the fuelers. You want to watch the jackmen. Todd Deneve and Mark Sampson are the fueler and the jackman for Dixon. Pat Hosa, John Hazlitt are the fueler and the jackman for the 3-car of Castroneves. It will be incumbent upon them to make the dry brake connection at 4 gallons of fuel. Remember, the fuel flows at 2 to 3 gallons a second. These could be blindingly fast pit stops. And one of the limiting factors, well, Ricky Davis and Rick Reineman have just tossed away their guns. This is going to be a fuel only. Dash and go, guys, as they come to the line here, side by side in pit stalls. Castroneves will get there first. Now comes Scott Dixon. They make the connection. 1,000, 1,000. Castroneves is away first, but it's Dixon in the thing. Got to cross the line first.
All right, so let's see what happens here. And Dixon is the leader of the race off pit lane. He picks up 3. Elio drops 1. Briscoe comes in where he went out. And Weldon drops 2. So now the stage is set. As you see, the race off pit road. And that #1 pit stall, oh, so important for Scott Dixon. Back here at Chicagoland, the final race of the 2008 IndyCar campaign. And there is a smiling Emma Dixon. Her man is out in front of Elio Castroneves as the race leader, as it is a stressful moment for Tim Cindric. They have tried mightily. They started dead last in this field. They've led the most laps with Elio leading 79 so far. But now his worst nightmare, a Scott Dixon #9 car sitting right in front of him with enough fuel to go the distance. There is the Firestone lap leaders, and you can see that Elio has clinched the 3 bonus points, but it may not be enough, Vince.
Guys, remember we talked about at the beginning of the day that Elio Castroneves had to lead the most laps, had to win the race, and then hope for some misfortune or at least a less than stellar finish for Scott Dixon. I tell you what, he may not win the championship, but you got to tip your hat to what Castroneves and this Team Penske crew has done to come from the back of the pack to have a shot at winning the race, but they have already guaranteed themselves to lead the most laps. So even if they don't get the championship, which at this point seems unlikely, it's still been terrific outing as we go green.
Down to the front straightaway. There'll be 11 laps to go this time by. Don't think we have to worry about any fuel conservation, and we got another car up into the wall. That is Graham Rahal as he brushes the turn 2 wall, and the yellow is out again. So this will set a record for yellows for this event, our 7th. And all it does is make Scott Dixon's stomach turn a little bit more, and Elio's too.
Well, I think Scott Dixon's feeling pretty good right now because he's doing what he loves to do, and that's to have his foot flat on the gas. It's a lot easier for him to be up front, get a good restart, and just keep your foot on it all the way and stay down towards the white line on the bottom and make Castroneves go around you on the high side.
Jack, you've got more on Scott?
Yeah, Scott Goodyear, you can relate to this. Just moments ago, just before that caution came out, Mike Hull went to his driver and said, look, we're good to go to fuel position 1. Use your head. Castroneves has to win, and you have to finish further back than 8th. And all of a sudden, you could hear the relief in Scott Dixon's voice. He just simply said, roger that.
Well, he's on the verge of a couple of records, guys. He already got one of them. With these 5 laps he's now led today, he's broken the record for most laps led in a season, previously held by Tony Kanaan in 04 at 889. Win this race, that'll be 7 this season, breaking a single season mark.
As his teammate, Dan Weldon. And Dan's begged with him. Don't go out and win. Don't take my record.
Sorry, Charlie, we're going to go for it. And you can see everybody scuffing the tires, trying to get ready as we'll go back to green flag racing here at Chicagoland.
And all he'll do is when it comes time to get the green, his foot will be on the gas. You have the paddle shifters on the steering wheel now, and you just take the engine up to 10,300 RPM, keep shifting the gears, make sure it's perfect, and don't over rev the engine, and stay down by the white line, and you're looking towards the checkered flag.
Castroneves right up on his wing on the high side. Dixon hits the hammer, and they're calling no start. I think it's because Elio was not tucked in behind. They talked about being in single file for the restarts. So now that'll be another lapped burn. And Elio Castroneves and Tim Cindric are going to come up apparently a little bit short. A smile for a moment on Emma's face. They're a little bit closer. Elio finished second in 02. He finished third to Scott Dixon in the championship chase in 03. It's the one thing that has eluded him. He's a two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. But he's going to be oh so close again. And here he is right on the high side again. No start again. So I think Elio's going to have to get the message as he burns another lap. There'll be 7 to go this time by. If you have not been with us throughout the day, this has been a much more dramatic event than a lot of us thought it might be. When we saw Elio starting 28th, we were sort of looking at each other going, okay, how are we going to make this fly? And the guy who flew was in the 3 car.
He's done a great job maneuvering yourself through the traffic all the way at the back and getting 20 spots in that first run that he had was simply amazing. Yes, he probably had a faster car, but to make sure that you can get through there is really incredible. A lot of work by the spotter to tell him where the parts are that are clear on the racetrack, and that's the important part for Helio Castroneves. He did not get hit by anybody on the way through.
This time he's nose to tail, and this time we're going green. So it'll be 6 laps to go here at Chicagoland for Scott Dixon in his second championship. You heard Packy, don't look back. He's talking to the driver of the number 9.
Dixon will not get off that bottom line. He'll stay on the low side all the way around. You mentioned he'll break the record for 7 wins this season. He's not won here at Chicago. He's finished second twice.
Elio trying to put pressure on him, trying to hopefully, in his mind, make Scott make a mistake. 5 laps to go. He's all over the back wing. But right now, this is where the Iceman is coming through because he is solid, stuck to the bottom of the racetrack. 4 laps to go, this time by. Whoa, so close. Castroneves trying everything he can think of to get Dixon to make an error. But Dixon is flawless right now. Emma looking on. 3 laps to go here at Chicagoland.
He gets the run going into 1, but his car doesn't get through the center of the turn as fast as Scott Dixon's. When we were on board with him a minute ago, you could hear the RPMs drone down just a little bit. Dixon's car is just rotating in the middle of the turn real easily, and it's not taking off speed or RPMs. Castroneves has been stronger in 3 and 4. Here he gets a run on him going down the front section.
2 laps remaining. We could not have asked for a better finish. Here they are, first and second in the points, running first and second on the racetrack. And again, Dixon hugging that low line. Here comes Elio on the high side. Is he going to be able to take the lead through 3 and 4? Oh, it's so close. Dixon coming out of 4. Looks like he's going to be in the lead for the white flag lap. Here he was 1 year ago in the very same position, but he did not have enough ethanol. 1/2 cup short. He doesn't have to worry this time. Down the backstretch. Scott Dixon looking to set a record, but more importantly, looking to win the championship. And here he comes out of turn number 4. Dixon with Elio and Briscoe. Who's going to win the race? The race goes to Dixon. He gets him right at the stripe. So he wins the race and the championship and the $1 million that goes with it. Let the celebration begin.
Good job, boys. Good job.
Scott Dixon, his 17th career win, 7th this season. It sets a series record, breaking his teammates Dan Weldon's mark, and his first win here at Chicago. All right, now we're getting word from IndyCar officials that they are double checking the finish. All of our electronic scoring on both of our monitors has Dixon in front of Castroneves by 1/1000th of a second. It would be the closest finish in IndyCar Series history. Take another look. Here's the last half lap.
Remember we talked about Castroneves' car not getting through the middle of the turn as good as Dixon's.
Boy, that is so. How do you
Your
tell?
guess is as good as mine.
All right, take a look. You're looking for 1/1000th of a second.
Oh. What does that tell you?
Well, but which one of these little timelines is the one you've got to cross? The previous closest finish in IndyCar history, 22/1000th of a second, actually 24/10,000ths. That was back in 2002, and right now we're looking at 1/1000th of a second, the difference. But right now you're looking at a two-time champion, and it is Scott Dixon. Jack?
And Scott Dixon puts the winner's hat on, and he's about ready to get out of the car. Come on, Scott. $1 million awaits this man. He is the champion for 2008. And Terry Angstad will make the $1 million check presentation. He is the president of the commercial division for the Indy Racing League. And he's standing by. We're still awaiting the photo finish, which turns out to be the closest finish in history. Scott, there's some money to be handed over by Terry Angstad. Terry?
Scott, you emerged from the most talented and diverse field of drivers in all of motorsports to be our champion, and we could not be more proud. Congratulations, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, man. Like, I still can't believe it. What a race. You know, we were back and forth. We were up there for a little bit, then we got shuffled back, especially with some of the guys I didn't expect to be racing with. Were super fast today, but I got to hand it's all to do with the team, man. Team Target's done a fantastic job all year. I just can't. We won the last one, and we won the championship. It was fantastic. Thank you very much to everybody at the IRL. What a great series to run in.
Let's talk a little bit. You ran as high as the lead. You went as far back as 10th place. Mike Hull is there telling you make fuel, be patient. Some long pit stops. Ricky Davis challenging himself. The crew trying to make that last stop perfect. What was the stomach like?
It was tough, you know. I think especially when you're racing around 10th, you got people in front of you, you got people behind you. They're all trying to do crazy things. It's really tough. And to try and keep yourself calm and know that you've got the car to get to the front and just sort of wait for a green flag run to make it happen was probably the hardest part. But the crew guys, they might have had one problem there, but look what they did at the end, man. They brought us through to a win.
So you bat through the cycle, you win the Indy 500 and the championship in the same year. Can you describe this season for you?
It's been amazing. I think my year in general, just getting married to my beautiful wife Emma, and obviously having the season that we've had, it's been amazing. I got to thank my family, friends, New Zealand and in England now with my new family over there. It's just been unbelievable. So I can't believe it, man. I can't believe it.
Let's check in with Vince Welch.
Well, we've just found out that Helio Castroneves, you are the winner of the race.
No way! I knew it. I thought, I really think I won this thing, and hey, my man,
celebrating with Ryan Briscoe. We'll show it to you on the monitor, Helio, if you want to take a look at the finish.
I knew it. I gotta go and climb the fence because there is no way. I mean, it was awesome. We tried everything, to win, and we did everything we could. Ganassi did a hell of a job. Guys, Team Penske, thank you so much to give him a great car. I have to thank everyone, and what a great finish, man. It was hard. I was trying everything I could.
Helio doesn't win the championship, but he wins the race today. Marty.
Second win in 3 races. You can chat with Helio at ESPN.com tonight at 8:30 and chat with the champion, Scott Dixon, at 8:45. Just go to search and type in Indy Chat. Tonight at 6:30 on ESPN2, the NASCAR Nationwide Series at Richmond. Coming up next, it's ABC World News or your local news except on the West Coast. So in his early years, he was the Iceman, but now, at age, a little older, marriage, and a sense of self-confidence, well, he's melted that cold exterior. Today, he surrounds himself with a warmth, a glow of a second championship.